here comes Robert.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, very good.
How was your trip?
It was a lot of fun. Went very well. No problems.
Very good.
Hello, my dear friends.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
Honey, if you ever get the chance, you're driving down south on Route 1 for whatever reason. Down in Malibu, I discovered the most amazing little fish camp. Now that's a term that's used up in North Carolina, where you usually have an open pavilion with, picnic tables stacked up one against the other, and they serve basically catfish and, all the wonderful delights. Well, this one in Malibu serves fresh fish. Had the best clam chowder I've ever had. And it was probably a little more than a North Carolina fish camp, but it was not high priced. And it was the best fish I've had in a long time. And you're right, in your little pavilions, you've got nothing in front of you except for the Pacific Ocean. I couldn't believe it. I figured, Malibu, we'd have to go in this ritzy, pricey little place, and, lots of snooty. No, and this is down home, and it was good.
Oh, I love catfish.
Well, no, I mean, they had everything. In fact, I'm not even sure they had catfish because I'm not sure that's a big deal in the West Coast, but that's what they have in North Carolina is catfish.
Ah.
But no,
Yeah,
it was.
It's not.
Amazing.
It's not ocean fish, I don't think. Catfish.
Oh, no.
No, it's stream fish. Yeah, lake.
So this one was all ocean fish, but squid and octopus and everything in the crab. I mean, they had everything. But you could buy it not on some fancy dish, but it would be like you'd have a sandwich with this fish in it that was fried up.
Thanks for the tip.
Everything's down there. I can tell you where it is. I know
Malibu is a far piece from me.
I know it is. You have to go through all Carpinteria and Ventura and all those places.
You got to go north.
North.
From Malibu, from
Santa Barbara.
No, it's south. No, Malibu is close to LA.
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Oh yeah.
I went to Malibu once and we went north, but maybe not. I've slept since then.
Well, maybe the poles have shifted since you last went.
I believe they have. My inner sensibilities tell me they have.
When you're least aware of it, it just happens.
Because I just got off of the phone with an answering service for my dental company, it was just, I have to laugh at myself and laugh at it all because it was so frustrating.
Yeah.
I was just trying to find out, what am I looking for? I mean, I had the address, but so often dentists are in complexes and,
Yep.
and it's hard to identify something. But she was just an answering service. She was.
I'm not going to tell you. She didn't understand the question, right?
So she was trying to text. Anyway, it just made me laugh because I get so frustrated.
Yeah.
Situations like that.
Yeah. Yeah. My daughter can tell when I'm on the phone with those kinds of things. My voice changes. And the dog used to get up and walk out because he couldn't deal with my irritation.
it's like I get to where it's a monumental problem. And then I have to laugh at myself because I'm making so much out of this,
Mhm.
but it really ties you up in knots. Me, sometimes.
There's a
Yeah.
helplessness there, you know, because there's really not anything you can actually do about it. And so it's just, you know, you're kind of beaten against this thing and there's no real solution, you know. I mean, it's a machine. It's not going to change. It's not going to respond to you in any real way.
But
And so
the interesting thing is how bent out of shape I get over something like this, which
yeah,
is next to nothing. It's a phone call. It's just, but it can get me
think
so frustrated.
denies your humanity in a way, though, because you're not talking to a human. You're talking to something that a human's put in front between you.
Right.
And that's kind of irritating.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't get me started on Alexa, by the way. I mean,
Alexa.
Alexa's fine for ordering up the music, but you know, you try to ask Alexa about the meaning of life and it's all over. Let me tell you.
Sometimes they've programmed in interesting answers. I mean, yeah.
So I found these friends of mine that we stayed with up in Asheville, North Carolina. They had an Alexa set up in their house, and that's how you actually controlled some of the lights and definitely the music. They were gone, so Terry and I had a real problem at the time. But on the way, you know, before we left, we had stopped at one of these little curio, shops. We buy all kinds of stuff, and there was this little magnet for the refrigerator. It said, "Alexa, beam me up to the lake." My friends were at the lake. They have a lake house. I mean, a house. What do you call it? Houseboat. It's not really a houseboat though. It's on the wall on pontoons out in the lake. So we left that there and we got this reply back. They said they just laughed and laughed and laughed. As if, you know, Alexa, I can live without it. And I choose to.
Yeah.
I talk to Siri in a given day more than I talk with anybody else.
Do you have Siri?
Yeah. I tell her when to set my alarm and different things, you know.
Well, you need an alarm cat.
And I ask her things. And she tells me from Google.
Oh yeah?
She goes on Google and tells me stuff.
Yeah, I have her. I don't use her much though.
It's kind of fun.
I still remember she did something and I said, "Thank you." And the response was, "Pleased to serve."
Really? Wow.
Doesn't always do that, but she did at that time.
It's a funny world we're creating, I swear. But not really
Some
funny.
programmers have senses of humor, and that's
Yeah,
yeah,
that's important.
it is.
Otherwise, you'll hurt somebody. Oh, my.
Yeah, the HR this morning was on a woman named Hannah Ash, who I have a connection to. I mean, I've just been, I was interested enough in what she was doing and talking to buy her book. She's doing training mostly for women, and she comes from a Toltec tradition. She has a really long history with Don Juan and Don Luis and several of the others that came up in the 60s and 70s. And she's been with them for 20, 30 years. So she did a practice on HR this morning called reconciliation, where you pull back your energy from situations and people in the past so that you have access to it. And it was very, very interesting. It's really even interesting to consider because we don't think about that much. But we leak energy in our beliefs. I'm not worthy is a great one to just suck energy out, but you can pull it back through this process.
What do you mean when you say pull back your energy?
Just exactly that, because we let it go. We tie our energy to our belief system that tells us what we can do and not do. And so we put energy to make sure that stays there, and those don't serve us. So when we pull it back, then we have energy to be present. So we can be present instead of coming from other places, other situations, other people that have had influence.
I still don't know what you mean, because there's just being present or not.
Well,
You pull back your energy.
Yeah, that's not always true, actually. Yeah, for a lot of people, they're not present at all, actually.
Well, right. Yeah, I'm talking
Right.
about us, though. Our own.
Yeah. So their energy is in other places. So, yeah, well, I think we have past life connections in that regard as well. So,
yeah.
it was just
Last night I was talking about that with regard to health. I referred to past life projections, and I said, "Oh no, not that type. I meant, earlier parts of this. I was a different man, and when I was a 30, I was a different man from that, and 40, 50, and 60, and 70, and but pointing out much the same thing, that you either are still under the control of zombie patterns, or you allow your body to refresh and live in the moment, basically, Ani. I mean, that's where it gets to what you were pointing out. If you're living in the moment truly, and there are no more patterns influencing from afar, and of course, tucked into the subconscious influences that we all have, because let's face it, the subconscious influences run our bodies. So do they run our mind as well? That's an important question in every moment. And they are, to an amazing degree. There's this constant interplay. Otherwise, we do certain actions based on memory, conscious memory, but there are visceral body memories also that are constantly playing. So, I mean, I was just bringing this up in terms of health, that a major health, strategy is to begin to understand some of these things, which somebody in the group pointed out is retracing.
Can I stop you a moment, please?
Absolutely.
I'm just really needing a centering for us, just a coming together energetically with you two, where we can feel ourselves in the moment with each other and come to what is within us, and not scattered stuff in our brains, the pieces of information that I need to be with you to be grounded in something here. And I know it's within myself, but we are three, and we have come together for a deep dive. And I would love to deep dive, not just stay on the surface of a lot of crazy things.
I'm game.
Yeah, as I'm talking, I'm trying to get there. And with your game.
That's very important.
Yeah, thank you.
How do you
feel better? Oh. Sanity is a fragile thing. Because sanity is, I don't know, it like it starts at the core and comes up to the brain. Maybe. I don't know, but I appreciate this quieting of energy. Oh, Robert, I'm interested in what that is beneath the cabinets behind you on the floor.
Oh, those are some drinks.
Oh,
It's, just a package of cans of, a fizzy water product. I forget the name of it.
what are each of you focused on in terms of, let me turn this off. Focused off in terms of taking in. What are you what are you reaching out to take in? Something like, I've been on a lot of authentic relating technology stuff. And I'm up to here with it.
We're so happy with it last week.
I know, but that was last week. Too much of anything becomes unproductive.
Yeah, I just I want to complete where we were a little bit before we go forward, because I think what Robert was starting to bring in, I think, is actually important. The experience I had this morning with the recapitulation process touched on what you were talking about, Robert, in terms of your health, because one of the places, what she did was help us pull our energy back from places where we thought we were right, or where we needed to be right, or where we were with someone who needed to be right. And so that was the context of the search. And what was interesting for me was to discover that the man who had completed my knee surgery by sewing up all the little nerves and putting all that stuff back, left a lot of that in my knee. So I was able to release that energy from my body in that place. So there's all sorts of ways that we get hooked that you're not even aware of. And this process is really good to allow your body to tell you where all that stuff is, so that you can pull your energy back and be you and not be influenced by all that. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. And I can give you another example, slightly different, but 2 days ago, this one project I've been working on just came under incredible pressure. People were thinking of suing each other, and there's all kinds of stuff flying around. And my wife and I, it's always important to do this with another person. My wife and I, talked it out. We just, you might say, we were with it. We bead with it individually, but together.
Gave it voice. Could you say that?
Single voice. Yeah, we gave it voice. And, and a simple solution came out, and bingo, I showed up the next day with an agenda that I'd written up, and the whole meeting fell into place. And so far it's holding. This is 2 days later. But another thing came of it, and this is how it factors into what we've been talking about just now, which is that I realized that I've been hanging on to working. I I don't particularly need to. And I had an appointment yesterday morning for a new job. And I didn't really want to go. I mean, the job is really, it was not something that was going to be easy. And I don't want that right now. I've got lots of other things going on. And to tie myself down, basically it had to do with a tree. They want to put this whole project around a tree. And that's an extremely demanding, project to take on. So I called the guy and I said, yeah, this project for the addition and it's simple. I said, anybody you hire can help you with that. I said, but you've got to get an arborist on board. You've got to follow those directions precisely. It's a very difficult job in that respect. And he understood. So, but I realized that, hey, this is an important step to take, to just realize that's not something I want to get wrapped up in. I mean, I've got lots of different people that I'm doing things with. I'm writing, I'm painting. I mean, I never thought of it as retirement. I mean, I like to stay busy and doing things. But yes, there's some things that I need to retire from.
Yeah.
And I did that. I canceled that job, and and just realizing that how much that I had found refuge in that concept of myself. And so that's a major thing to face.
Yeah.
And Terry, my wife had the same thing. I mean, it took her 6 months to finally get to the point of severing the relationship with her last job.
I have a client I've been working for 3 years on releasing her from a toxic work situation. And she's just now just really seen it for being toxic, willing to let it go. She's not willing to let work go yet. However,
there are good reasons to work. I mean, one of them is the money coming in, but I mean,
being busy and active. She doesn't need money, but she does need to be active and have agency.
Yeah.
And that's what she fears she's going to give up if she's not engaged in the business world in some way.
Absolutely.
And so discovering other ways to have agency will make it.
Of course, that has implications all through, with your health, with the way your body is affected.
Yeah. And she's sick. She had to get really sick.
Yeah.
I couldn't keep her out of it. I mean, you can't stay in a toxic situation, and it's rare for a person to stay in a toxic situation for a long time and not embody it in some way, have a physical reaction to it. It's one of the ways we talk to ourselves. So you can avoid that if you can understand what you're doing and not have to do that. That's okay. But if you don't, then your body will sort of knock on and say, pay attention. This isn't right. Yeah.
I'm really not involved in any toxic situations and haven't been for a while, because I got tired of being in toxic situations. And so, but to be involved and have agency in something is important. And so what I am finally seeing for myself at this point in my life, with all the options that I have, is Margaret Wheatley and her
Warriors for the Human Spirit.
warriors, leaders as warriors for the human spirit. And what I'm attempting to cultivate now for myself is what I'm holding for humanity and as humanity, the qualities and characteristics and gifts that we have. And the the thing that really got my attention is when she said the only weapons, instruments for leaders who are warriors of the human spirit are compassion and insight. And that kind of got to me, you know.
Are you taking her class? You know,
What?
she's got a course.
Yeah, I'm in it, or I've I opted for that, and I've downloaded a lot of things that she had to download for that. I I don't think I'm not aware yet that she's doing a live thing with people who have signed up.
Yeah. Oh, she has been for years. So you go in and out of, there's a part of it's online, and then there's some physical having to be in together space. So she's got courses if you want to do that.
I haven't received anything scheduled about what she's doing with on sessions with the warriors for warriors for the human spirit.
Yeah, no, she's got it. She's been doing it for a while, and I think because she's just rewritten her book.
Right.
We published that, so I think she's got a new thing coming out of that, would be
Yeah,
my guess.
it comes out it comes out, I think, this week or next week.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to receiving that. But just it seems like the best I can do with my agency and potential is to hold the highest and best for humanity at large, to envision in my mind, to hold in my mind and heart the good stuff, you know, the qualities, the capacities that we have. Because if your only tools are compassion and insight, shit, but that's not easy. Compassion and insight, those aren't the tools I'm used to working with.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, we touched on compassion a little bit last week.
say
That
more.
people, well, that people are Earth, that we're all part of the Earth, that we're not any different. I mean, just it's the
That's
path to
Oh,
compassion. I mean,
last week's session with you was so rich. I love looking at that video.
yeah, it is up if you want it. I did a lot of editing, so it's not as long. It's a little shorter.
Well, I
Which-
like the full thing. Is there any way I can have access to before you start chopping it up?
No, and you didn't really notice that it was chopped up, so I think it's really fine.
Well, I know there was one piece that was chopped out that I don't know what it was, because I heard myself saying, boy, that was strong, but it was cut out.
So maybe I can go back. Yeah, I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. That's
Yeah.
I really try not to edit because it just it's a time suck. And I'm not really good at it because I don't practice it, because you have to practice editing to be really good at it.
You know what I would love?
It's just too much.
I don't have a list yet of the characteristics and qualities and that to hold for humanity. I mean, I did A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and I put words by them, but but like, what are we what is our gift to the world? Because nature did intend for our species to be on Earth. I have no doubt about that.
Yep. But
And
I think our For me, the path is created as we walk. And because we've never been willing to partner with the earth, and I'm not sure that that's a true statement. I don't know enough about indigenous cultures to know whether they partner. My sense is that most of the indigenous cultures that I'm aware of have really focused on deep understanding. They've practices like the Toltec practice of recapitulation, where you bring yourself together in your present. So that kind of management. There's been a huge management of plants, which is why the forests are so verdant and fertile, because they've been managed. They really pay attention to what grows and how to facilitate that. And I suspect that the problem and the gift of the white culture, because we're outside of all that, most of the white culture's not been connected to indigenous anything for probably ever. I don't, must have, but it's been a long time. Is this desire to create. And we've used that as a self-expression. So from a values perspective, that was the affective value set is about creation and the rules for that. But we've not partnered. We've not been in sympathy, dancing with, co-creating. And I think that's what's being called for now in a different way. We're going to have to co-create in order to shift to a hotter planet if we want to stay. I don't think there's any other way of doing it. We can't control the planet. We can't create stuff to protect ourselves from the planet, which is what we've been doing. So we're going to have to start to work with it. And that's working with our bodies and our psyche and life, how life wants to express itself in this new, warmer situation. And I don't know what that's going to look like, but I think if we play with that, if we dance with that, if we're conscious with that, we will discover, we will begin to appreciate ourselves in a whole new way, because we'll see what we can do, which right now we have played at. We can see things we can do, but we haven't seen things we can do that actually help life thrive. We're not good at that. We're good at destruction and we're good at comfort, but we're not good at helping life thrive. We've not really engaged with that yet.
One of the things I'm becoming aware of is from a historical perspective, that, back to 1492 with the doctrine of discovery that brought the oppression of humanity into being is, and it came from Europe, that it came from Europe. And what's coming from Europe now is authentic relating technology. And that to reconcile, to balance us out. I mean, because we need authentic relating, being honest, being present with each other, being aware of what's going on inside of us. And so that's what I'm becoming aware of, that authentic relating. And
well, the energy work we were talking about at the beginning is part of that, I think, because if the person isn't present, then their authentic relating is not really possible. You're relating to the fantasies that the person holds. And that's part of the problem, because we get caught in that and you can't really do it because it's not real. They're illusions that we're holding. Yeah.
For me, tying that in, tying the movement of authentic relating that's beginning to happen, tying that in with earth relationship, with I've got a friend in Argentina that took me with her into the forest in Argentina, and I think I mentioned to you before, I felt it. I mean, it's like I was there, and
Yeah.
that's real. I mean, since COVID and virtual reality and Zoom is where we meet. I mean, everything has shifted so much, and because we are all connected, and we're beginning to see that, feel that, work with that, and it's all earth-based. It's
Yeah.
because we are earthen. So authentic relation with each other, and 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 relationship with earth, and elemental relationship with earth. Those are the two focuses for
I
me.
think that the what we can learn from Earth about authentic relationship comes from forests, old forests, because old forests, that's what they are. They're a puddle of authentic relationship that has
Oh, guys.
been authentic enough to last for decades, maybe eons even, because trees can live for hundreds of years. So the forest really can be hundreds of years old. The whole ecology, all those relationships have been managed for that length of time in order to survive. And we've been busy tearing them up and putting young things in there which don't have that experience. So your experience of a young forest is different than an experience in an old forest, because the old forest is truly a one. It's all they've come together. They've had to come together. That's been the process, but it takes time. And the young forests are nice and they're wonderful to be in, and everybody's happy, but they're not seated in that same kind of way. They don't have that depth of understanding and experience in relating. I mean, I think that's one of the wonders of our body, is our body does have some of that experience, because the biomes in our body are old.
Yeah.
So we have access to that old wisdom internally. That's why the internal work is so important, because it allows that to come forward and get out of our minds, which are all young.
Mhm. Well, I mean, to me, the issue boils down to something extremely simple, that we have created, we, meaning mankind at the moment, the way it exists, man and womankind, but
But mainly
human
mankind.
humans. I'm not so sure about that.
I'm not so sure either. I wish it would be true. But
Humans exist in this mindset of the I,
yeah, the separate.
capital I. We are the managers of
Yeah.
this conglomeration. And we see the world that way. We plant individual trees. We
Yes.
plant, we deal with individual animals.
And we pick them up and move them and put them anywhere,
Anywhere. And so within that, the only value system that we work with is what will support me, the I.
Yep.
And that's all natural. I mean, you can carry on, with about morals and and rightness and righteousness and all these things that people get really high and hardy about. But the fact of the matter is, it's all misguided, because it has nothing to do with we.
Yep.
Really
Since,
doesn't.
since we do create our reality by what we say, I,
Mhm.
I would invite us to say what it is we want to create, what it is that is happening that is good,
Okay,
because
let me,
we're creating it as we talk.
you anticipated me, because I was just about to talk about we. And what I'm seeing here in this group of three, but also with other groups that I'm involved in, we're beginning to create, and it's usually over Zoom because we don't live next to each other necessarily. So sorry about that. It's a necessity these days, but we create moments, extended moments whether it's in HR or, different places, within that, different media, we are creating moments of we, where the connection between the people is so rich.
Nice.
That generation is occurring,
Nice.
real creative co-generation. And this is the start, I believe. This is where we begin. We don't go out trying to create these mega projects, where I am healing the earth. Cool,
Right.
No, that can only come in any meaningful sense, as you're saying, Kathryn, when there's some age, we have aged well together. And then what comes forth is automatically going to embrace, all of life here on the planet. And by the way, this planet's the only place where we know of life. As far as we know, there's nothing else out there. Doesn't mean there isn't, but I mean, we don't know about it. So we're talking about it. Let's stay rooted and anchored, where we are.
Yes.
And only then do we begin to, to see the horror of what we've created in all of its entirety, but on the other hand, the more we get into really get into it, where we are working in conglomeration, if you will, there's aggregation, there are all kinds of different words for it. Suddenly you're not so bothered by the fact of as Kathryn was also saying, there are, and we mentioned it before, there's that Native American woman that there was a YouTube thing that I think I mentioned. If there are ways.
Yes.
But all of that focus on I negates it.
Right.
It can't be done that way because profit will rear its ugly head. The profit. Power. Yeah. It's all about I, one way or another. And we all have to admit we've been there.
Oh my goodness, yes. My email address. I am universe. I am universe.
Is that what your t-shirt says? I see the am on it. Oh, I am heart. Oh, I like that one.
Yeah, but the other ones I made, I am nature. I've got t-shirts that say I am nature. But yeah, the I am has
Oh, that's where we went last week. Yeah, really.
Well, this is essentially my entire focus right now. Is, as I've just expressed, at least a part of it. A small part, but that's the focus. So I have my brothers and sisters in spirit out there that I'm, you might say, working with, but it's more like playing with, because we learn from each other, and it's so natural that it's like play. It's like we're those little kids, who are still have that touch, of the natural innocence, 5, 4, 3 years old, and they're just out there learning from each other.
Yeah.
And this is the way I feel right now, 76 years old, young. I think Anna, you said that a time or two ago, that you're feeling younger and younger every day.
I feel good, I do.
See what I mean?
Yeah, it's true. Joanna Macy talks about eco-identity.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that, because in that is the interdependence and the sharing of identity.
That's what I've gotten from the value system too. When I really go through those values and experience them, not just understand them, but really experience what it's like to be in that space of agency, in that space of diversity, really part of, because I am part of the diversity is me, it's not all those other things. But when you get that sense, the expansion and the connection are huge. I mean, it just totally shifts. You become part of and with, and yeah, that whole separation thing just disappears. And I think that's, so for me, that's one tool. But there are so many tools, and everybody has their own path to finding it. I mean, you have to, because we're all so unique. We're all different. So there can't be one way of doing this. There just can't be. But that, I mean, I'm circling back actually to this HR experience this morning, because we have this amazing woman with this huge history and tons of experience around Toltec, sharing this very incredible experience with us. And there's a guy in the chat who's saying, oh, well, what you're saying is not what Don Juan said, because Don Juan's got this path and Don Juan's 100% correct. And you're not going with what Don Juan said. So you can't possibly be that. And she's saying, actually, I understand. I've spent time with him. She did. So he has a path. And then this person has a path. There's 12 paths. So there's lots of different ways. And the guy cannot get over that. He just can't. It's got to be like Don Juan, or it doesn't work, which is why she did the let's be right thing. I mean, it was just lovely. And he totally didn't get it, because he went through the whole thing and then he came back with, no, you've really got to do this. And she just laughed. But it's so hard to allow for things that aren't us as right.
Yeah.
Nice way to put it. It's so hard to allow things that aren't right. To say it again.
It's so hard to allow things that are not us to be right.
That are not us to be right. Right.
Because there's all of us, and all of us has a right. I mean, that's, I just can't say how much that just tickles me to really, really get that we're composed of 30,000 species, each of which have trillions of examples of themselves, and they're all doing what's right for them. Period. No bigger. And it works for us.
And it can all blend together in harmony.
Yeah. They keep us alive.
Each following the same music.
Yeah, their music, not anybody else's music.
No,
I mean,
there's a pulse. I think there's a greater music that encompasses all of the, you might say, the specific musics of the species.
Yes, all actions create the conditions that support life and manage the integrity of the whole. That's it. That's the prime direction.
I still don't understand and appreciate that statement. Everything that happens is good. Everything that happens is life supportive. It's not.
Yes, it is.
I mean, this.
If it's done with that intent, everything is. Death is. Killing is.
Well, then put in if it's done with that intent.
That intent. Yes, absolutely. We're the only species that doesn't have that intent. Every other species does. We deny it. It's us.
So if you would preface that one statement, you keep saying everything is.
Well, humans have to do that. That's how humans have to live. Is that all actions create the conditions that support life. I've been in situations where it was karmically absolutely correct for me to beat somebody up, because that's what was needed in that situation. It was an appropriate response. Okay, I don't go around beating people up. That's not what I do. But in that instance, it was correct. And trusting that. And I also, in that instance, experienced going one iota over from my own self instead of from the experience. And that was wrong. And you can feel it. And that's the practice. that's the practice, staying in, because our body knows when we're life enhancing. That's what our body wants. It wants life, so we can trust that desire for life, and we can feel when we're just not there, or when we overshot it, or we undermined it in some kind of way, and that's practice. We're going to do that. So you would forgive yourself, you dust yourself off, and you start all over again. That's just
Well,
that's
a very important quality in the midst of all this is the quality of humility.
Yeah.
Your compassion could never happen without true humility. The creativity can never happen without true, humility, because it will be coming from one's desires as opposed to, you might say, life's desires, the way things work are working.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and we have to get out of our own way, is what it
Yes.
boils down to. And that's collective as well as, the individual I.
Yeah, and that's what she was talking about, working with, and I was just so thrilled with her words and stuff, because it's just perfect fit for where I am and what I'm doing. But she talked about working with the intent, or with life. And I mean, we don't really spend much time thinking about life.
I do.
However we want to use that word. We use spirit, God. For me, those are all the ways we have tried to give form to what's shapeless, which is life. And so when you get that, then you can use those words and it works fine. But we make God different and separate from us, and we'll say, oh, God resides in you. Well, what does that look like? Are you God? Am I God? Then we get caught into those traps, instead of understanding it's the energy, that amorphous thing that is life, that we can only recognize when it's embodied. That's the only time it's there, is when you can see the tangible form.
Or feel it within you.
Or feel it. Yes. Yeah. The energetics. And that's a little more subtle, but life is beyond that too. Yeah, but we're so tied to earth. We are so tied. That's the other thing that's come up for me. And you started to allude to it a little bit, Robert. When we talk about going to other planets and all that kind of stuff, I mean, there was a part of the adventure that sounds really neat as an adventure. And that's what I think it could be, if we ever get there, if we ever survive long enough to make that happen. But the truth is that our body needs earth, the dirt of the planet, the other biomes in the planet here. And if we leave this place, we're disconnected from that. And I'm not sure that would lend us.
We don't know how to think yet. We don't
Well,
know.
it wouldn't be healthy. It wouldn't be physically healthy. Our body cannot be without earth for too long. Our species can't be without earth for too long. That's what we're made of. We're all of a piece. So you just can't separate us. So it's really shifted my understanding of the other planet drive.
Yeah, I can't get enough of earth relatedness. I'm looking for ways to do that. I can't do a garden where I am, but
Get a group together and do a mini forest somewhere. Get a group together and do a mini forest somewhere. I got so excited about that yesterday. I was with Matthew Fox's group. I have not been a fan of Matthew Fox, I will tell you. There's just something there that doesn't work for me. But he was something he wrote was read on HR a couple of days ago, or a week or so ago, that was really profound, and I'd love to find. And then I found this group called Global Kinship, and I just joined for grins and giggles, and it turns out to be Matthew Fox's group. but the people are wonderful. And there is a doingship there that I haven't felt in other groups. And so there's people wanting to be active in their theology, is what I want to say. And that was just really interesting. And there was a lot of resonance when I brought up the mini forest. There was a lot of resonance, a lot of gardeners, you know, people who are already putting hands in the dirt, and to begin to see how you can, from that place, really start to repair the earth in your own section is kind of powerful. You know, I mean, I really think it's something that when people are called to that, it's one of the most impactful things we can do now. We can't stop people from destroying the earth, but we can repair pieces of the earth where we are. That we can do, you know, and if enough people did it, it would have a huge impact. So I do think that's a calling. I do. I was so excited about it. It just made me so happy to hear people talk about it. I couldn't stand it. I was on YouTube looking at all these videos, and it's just so exciting what people are doing. This one man, where is he? God, I don't even know where he is. He started, oh, he's in India. That's where he is. India has a little appendage up here, and it's a city up here. And it's a city that's along a river, and he lives, he lives on the river, but there's an island, one of the largest islands surrounded by river in the world, that's disappearing because of erosion. And he has spent his whole life planting that place. So he has created a new forest there that's bigger than Central Park in his own life. And he just goes over there all day and cuts things off and plants them, and cuts things off and plants them. And he's expanding that every time. I mean, yeah, it's just amazing. And he gets all these awards, and he's saying, I don't want awards. What's the point? I want you to do this. I want you to see you can do this and do it. He says, nobody's doing it. They want to praise me for having done it. It's not, it's like, that's not the point. I was just, anyway. So there's so
give
many.
an award and you feel like you've done something. You give money, you feel like you've done something. You give praise, you feel like you've done something. I think that's his ultimate point is, no, you haven't. Unless your whole heart and body and life is devoted to this kind of connection making.
Yeah.
I'm having a little bit of a hard time with the talking about things, with the social commentaries. Can we make some kind of a shift to what's going to, I don't even know what, but I'm having less and less tolerance for social commentary and talking about things. Can we create something else here among the three of us?
Well, I believe we have been, but a few slipped in.
But what?
A few social commentaries have slipped in. I agree with that. But I think we have been creating something different.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Sure.
I'm still young. You're still young. We're going to make mistakes.
Nice.
But I totally, love your heart, both of you, and the way that you are intent, on being the difference, truly. So I don't mind when you point out that, oh, I've sort of wandered.
Yeah, it's all experimentation.
I mean, that's the relationship I have with my wife, and she'll point it out. You bet she will. And I love it.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go to the park today. I'm gonna get on the bus and go to the park and just walk in the park is what I need. is what I want. Because I would be happy if my mind were earth-centered all of the time. Because there's nothing that's not earth. And to put everything
Yeah,
in
I've
there.
been going to the river and it's made all the difference. I've been so tired of what.
Yeah, I was finishing a sentence. I was finishing a sentence. I mean, you cut me off. And now your screen is frozen.
Yeah, your screen's frozen.
So
It might be irretrievable, in which case, yep, there we go.
I didn't mean for her to leave.
Honey, you've got to watch that power of you.
Oops.
Well, it's after 1:30. It might be time for me to move on anyway. But
Right.
it has been a complete pleasure.
It's always a pleasure with you. You're very authentic and present to yourself and open and gentle.
Yeah.
Bless
No,
you.
I appreciate that you are pointing out, let's just say errant lines of thought. I mean, it's not necessary. You came back.
Welcome back.
Oh, you're muted. There you go.
Yeah, it just went out and then came back. And I thought you'd be gone, but you aren't. So that's kind of interesting.
We almost are, but not, but you know.
No, Zoom,
I'll-
No,
Zoom.
up in the corner of mine, it says you are now the host. Did you get that, Ani?
I
I
did.
got a little message that said you are now the host. So it just shifted over so the meeting could stay.
Oh,
Wow. I have no idea how all that happened, but it's good.
But we were also saying our goodbyes because I think that I need to get on to
Yeah.
some things. I was just saying, as always, it's been a real pleasure.
Yeah.
thank you, Robert.
And my cat says goodbye too. She's been here throughout the whole thing. Where is she?
What's her name?
She's over there. Chloe.
Chloe. Okay.
I mean, I feel it's very important to have an animal in our lives.
I know.
She's she's 15 now, so she's very grounded.
Yeah. No, around 17.
And she's beginning to lose, some of her agility, but she can still jump up on this countertop, and she leaves the chipmunks alone now, where she used to eat them. But it's nice.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, I'm gonna say goodbye and see you next week.
All right.
Yes.
I'm ready to leave too. How about you, Kathryn?
Nope. I've got things to do too. So wonderful to spend time with you guys.
All right. Bless you both. Okay.
Yeah. Enjoy the park.
Thank you. Yes. Okay.
Enjoy the park.